Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm going to talk to you today about the Philippine presidential election. Now, not 100% of the ballots have not been counted, but around 98% of them have. And it's pretty clear that Bongbong Marcos, otherwise known as Ferdinand Marcos Jr., will win the Philippine presidential elections. Now, before we go any further, was it a landslide victory? Yes. Would he have won if the election was fair? Yes. Did most of the people vote for him? Yes. The majority of the people chose their leader, and they picked who they wanted to lead them. Now, with that being said, there has been some tampering with voting machines. There's been some voter intimidation that has been reported. Now, with that being said, I still think that Bongbong Marcos would have won, even if all these, and most of these other third-party candidates like Manny Pacquiao and Isko Moreno, who's the current mayor of Manila, if they had dropped out of the race and threw their support to Lenny, Bongbong Marcos still would have won. Now, here's some other things. Okay, the Manila Times and a lot of other sources thought he would have won by 60%. As of right now, the sources show it's almost 60%, but not quite. It's about 58.8% of the votes that Bongbong Marcos got. So it wasn't the 60 to 70% of the vote that people thought. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad, because here's what's going to happen. Lenny supporters did turn out in droves and rallies and voting for her. So this is where I'm going with this. Lenny Robredo has a considerable amount of support. Now, what I'm worried about, now, Bongbong Marcos did not lay out an economic platform. He didn't lay out a national security platform. He preached national unity, which I agree with, but he didn't lay out a platform for his economy or for his national security or anything. Now, Lenny Robredo laid out a good human rights plan. She laid out a good attack on China and China encroaching on their territories. She laid out that. But what she didn't lay out was an economic plan. She could have went through the good things that happened under Ferdinand Marcos Sr. as well as the bad. And there were some good things. The Philippines was a major rice exporter during the Ferdinand Marcos years. The economy was, despite all the corruption and human rights abuses, which were rampant under Ferdinand Marcos Sr. They were. Like it or not, they were. But there was considerable economic success. The Philippines during that time had the second highest growing economy in Asia, second to only Japan. So she could have noted that she would continue his economic policies, but not his human rights policies that happened under Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s father, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. And so I think that really discouraged some voters. So, but here's the thing. What is going to happen, and this is what concerns me, is that Bongbong Marcos won, and I supported Lenny, but I respect the voters' decision to go with Bongbong Marcos. Here is what's going to happen that's going to concern me, is there is going to be a significant minority that's going to be unhappy with Bongbong Marcos, more so than Rodrigo Duterte. And there are going to be protests. There are already election result protests right now. There's going to be tons of protests. That's going to clog up traffic. It's their right to protest. I'm not saying that. And I don't know how much power the Supreme Court and the courts have in the Philippines, but many Lenny supporters are going to challenge Bongbong Marcos even being eligible to run for president, even to take oath of office, because of supposedly failure to pay his taxes. There is, because he's already seen with the contempt in the United States. And whenever he goes to the United States to make speeches and stuff with the U.S., which he vows to continue, the U.S. is going to be watching him closely, because even though his family was allowed to live in exile in Hawaii, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. family, the United States allowed the Marcoses to be tried in a civil court. Not in criminal court. They exempted them from that, but they allowed them to be tried in civil court. And the Marcos family was really susceptible to a lot of class action lawsuits by a lot of Marcos victims that found their way to the United States, where some of them had immigrated to. And that's going to be an issue as well. So regardless, look, I supported Lenny for president, but Marcos is the president now. But what Marcos needs to do is keep strong ties with the United States. He also needs to bring Lenny supporters into his cabinet, into his government, to stress national unity. Because if he does not do that, Abraham Lincoln did it in the Civil War, you're going to have a very, very divided Philippines, and there would have been a divided northern USA, and we wouldn't have the USA like we have today had Lincoln not brought in his opponents to his cabinet and to his jobs. That's what Marcos needs to do to keep a unified Philippines. That's what Marcos Jr. needs to do. So everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless them. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.